Benjamin sat on the cold marble bench in the cemetery, staring at two fresh graves side by side. His wife Elena and his 8-year-old son. Tommy had been buried just 3 days ago. The car accident had taken them both in an instant, leaving Benjamin completely alone in the world. The richest man in the city now felt like he had nothing at all. His billion-dollar business empire meant nothing without Elena's laugh filling their mansion. His fancy cars sat empty in the garage, because Tommy would never again ask to ride in the red Ferrari. His bank accounts were full, but his heart was completely empty. Benjamin had not eaten in 2 days. He had not slept since the funeral. He just sat in different places around the city, crying and remembering all the happy times that were gone forever. Today, he found himself at Riverside Cemetery, where Elena had always said she wanted to be buried. Because of the beautiful oak trees, the November wind was cold and harsh. Dead leaves swirled around the graves like nature was crying too. Benjamin pulled his expensive black coat tight around his shoulders, but nothing could warm the ice that had formed around his heart. He was crying again when he heard a small voice behind him. "Mister, do you also cry from hunger?" Benjamin turned around and saw the smallest girl he had ever seen. She looked about 6 years old, with dark skin and huge brown eyes that seemed too big for her tiny face. Her clothes were torn and dirty. Her shoes had holes so big that her bare toes were sticking out. She was holding a piece of stale bread that looked like it came from a garbage can. "What did you say?" Benjamin asked, wiping tears from his eyes. The little girl stepped closer, not afraid of the tall man in the expensive suit. "I asked if you cry from hunger too. I cry every night because my tummy hurts so much from being empty." Benjamin stared at this child who was asking the most innocent question he had ever heard. Here he was, the richest man for miles around, and this little girl thought he was crying because he was hungry. "No, sweetheart," Benjamin said softly. "I'm not crying from hunger." "Then why are you crying?" the girl asked, sitting down on the ground next to his bench. "My mama always told me that grown-ups only cry when something really bad happens." Benjamin looked at her more closely. Her clothes were not just dirty, they were falling apart. Her hair looked like it had not been washed in weeks, but her eyes were bright and kind, full of curiosity about the world around her. "My wife and my little boy died in a car crash," Benjamin explained, his voice breaking. "I'm crying because I miss them so much, and I don't know how to live without them." The little girl nodded like she understood completely. "My mama died too. She got really sick and the doctors couldn't help her because we didn't have money for medicine. I've been living on the streets ever since." "How long ago did your mother die?" Benjamin asked, his heart aching for this tiny child. "I think it was maybe 4 months ago. I don't know for sure because I can't count very good yet, but it was when the leaves were green and now they're all brown." Benjamin felt something crack inside his chest. This little girl had been surviving on her own for months, and she was still worried about why a stranger was crying. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "My name is Hope. Mama named me that because she said I was her hope for a better future." "What's your name?" "Mister, my name is Benjamin. Hope is a beautiful name." Hope smiled for the first time, showing missing front teeth. "Thank you, Mr. Benjamin. Are you hungry now? I have some bread, but it's not very good. We can share it if you want." Benjamin looked at the moldy piece of bread in Hope's tiny hands. She was offering to share the only food she had with a complete stranger who was dressed in clothes that cost more than most people made in a year. "That's very kind of you, Hope, but I'm not hungry right now." "That's okay," Hope said. "Sometimes I'm not hungry either. Well, I'm always a little hungry, but sometimes I pretend I'm not, so it doesn't hurt so much." Benjamin felt tears starting again, but these were different tears. These were not just tears of sadness for his own loss. These were tears of shock that this child was living in such terrible conditions, while he had more money than he could ever spend. "Hope, where do you sleep at night?" "Different places," Hope said casually, like sleeping outside was perfectly normal. Sometimes under the bridge by the river, sometimes in the doorway of the old church on 5th Street. The pastor there is nice, and he gives me a blanket when it's really cold. Don't you have any family who can take care of you? Hope shook her head. Mama said my daddy went away before I was born. She didn't have any brothers or sisters. It was just me and her. And now it's just me. Benjamin could not believe what he was hearing. In his world of business, meetings, and fancy restaurants, he had forgotten that children like Hope even existed. He spent more money on lunch than this little girl had seen in months. Hope, are you scared living by yourself? Sometimes, Hope admitted quietly. Especially when it's dark and there are loud noises. But Mama told me I was brave and strong. So I try to remember that when I'm scared. Your mother sounds like she was a wonderful woman. Hope's face lit up with joy. She was the best mama in the whole world. She used to sing to me every night before bed. She made up stories about princesses and dragons. She always made sure I ate first, even when there wasn't very much food. What kind of stories did she tell? My favorite was about a little girl who found a magic lamp. When she rubbed it, a genie came out and granted her 3 wishes. The little girl wished for food for everyone who was hungry, homes for everyone who was cold, and families for everyone who was alone. Marcus smiled despite his sadness. Those are very good wishes. Mama said if I ever found a magic lamp, those should be my wishes too. She said taking care of other people is the most important thing anyone can do. As Hope talked about her mother, Benjamin began to see Elena in this little girl's face. Elena had always cared about helping others. She volunteered at homeless shelters and food banks. She donated money to children's charities. She always said that having so much money meant they had a responsibility to help people who had nothing. Elena would want me to help this child, Benjamin thought to himself. She would be so disappointed if I just walked away. Hope, when was the last time you had a real meal? Hope thought carefully. I found half a sandwich behind the deli on Tuesday. Or maybe it was Monday. The days all feel the same when you're by yourself. Would you like to come with me and get some food? Hope's eyes got even bigger. Really, you would do that for me? Of course I would. No child should ever be hungry. Hope jumped up from the ground, excited but trying not to show it too much. I promise I won't eat too much. I don't want to use up all your money. Benjamin almost laughed despite everything. If only she knew that he could buy every restaurant in the city and still have money left over. Don't worry about the money, Hope. Let's just focus on getting you fed. As they walked away from the cemetery, Benjamin noticed that Hope was limping slightly. Is your foot hurt? It's okay, Hope said, trying to be brave. I stepped on some glass yesterday, but it doesn't hurt too much. Benjamin stopped walking and knelt down in front of Hope. Let me see your foot. Hope lifted her foot, and Benjamin saw a deep cut that was infected and swollen. She had been walking on this injured foot without any medical care. Hope, this looks very painful. We need to take you to a doctor. Doctors cost money, Hope said matter-of-factly. I don't have money for doctors. I do, Benjamin said firmly. We're going to get your foot taken care of right now. 3 hours later, Benjamin and Hope were sitting in the emergency room at City General Hospital. Hope's foot had been cleaned and bandaged by Dr. Patricia Williams, a kind pediatrician who was shocked by Hope's story. This little girl has been incredibly brave, Dr. Williams told Benjamin privately. That infection could have been very serious if you hadn't brought her in. She's also severely malnourished and dehydrated. She needs proper food and shelter immediately, Benjamin nodded. What else does she need? A safe place to live, regular meals, clean clothes, and someone who cares about her. She's been through more trauma than most adults could handle. While they waited for Hope's prescription antibiotics, Benjamin bought her new shoes, warm clothes, and a stuffed teddy bear from the hospital gift shop. Hope held the teddy bear like it was made of gold. I've never had a teddy bear before, Hope whispered. What should I name him? What do you think? Benjamin asked. Hope looked at the brown teddy bear with kind button eyes. I think I'll call him Benjamin, after the nice man who helped me today. Benjamin felt his heart crack open again. But this time it was not just pain. There was something else growing there too, something that felt like purpose. Hope, I need to ask you something important. You can't keep living on the streets by yourself. It's not safe, and you're just a little girl. Would you let me help? You find a good place to live. Hope looked scared for the first time since Benjamin had met her. You're not going to send me away, are you? I promise I'll be good, and I won't cause any trouble. I'm not sending you anywhere, Benjamin said gently. I want to make sure you have everything you need to be safe and healthy and happy. But what? If the people don't like me? What if I say the wrong thing or do something bad? Benjamin realized that Hope was afraid of being rejected again. She had already lost the only person who loved her, and now she was scared to trust anyone else. Hope. Look at me, Benjamin said softly. I give you my word that I will never abandon you. I will make sure you always have a safe place to live and people who care about you. Do you promise? I promise with all my heart. Over the next few days, Benjamin made phone calls to social workers, lawyers, and children's services. He learned that Hope had no living relatives and had somehow fallen through the cracks of the system after her mother died. No one had been looking for her. No one even knew she existed. I want to adopt her, Benjamin told his lawyer, James Mitchell, on Friday morning. James looked shocked. Benjamin, are you sure you're thinking clearly? You just lost your family 3 weeks ago. This is a huge decision. I've never been more sure of anything, Benjamin replied. This little girl saved my life, James. When I met her, I was ready to give up on everything. But seeing her courage and kindness reminded me what's really important. The adoption process can take months, even with your resources. Then let's start immediately. In the meantime, I want to become her legal guardian so she can live with me. That evening, Benjamin brought Hope to his mansion for the first time. She stood in the grand entrance hall with her mouth hanging open, still clutching her teddy bear. Mr. Benjamin, do you live in a castle? Benjamin laughed, really laughed, for the first time since the accident. It's just a house. Hope. But now it's your house too. My house, Hope whispered like she couldn't believe it. Benjamin showed Hope to Elena's old art studio, which he had converted into the most beautiful bedroom any little girl could imagine. There were bookshelves full of children's books, a toy chest overflowing with dolls and games, and a canopy bed with pink and purple curtains. This is all for me, Hope asked, tears running down her cheeks. All for you, Benjamin confirmed. And Hope, there's something else I want to tell you. I'm going to adopt you officially. That means you'll be my daughter forever. Hope dropped her teddy bear and ran into Benjamin's arms, hugging him as tight as she could. Does that mean you'll be my daddy? If you want me to be, I want that more than anything in the whole world, Hope cried into his shoulder. I love you, Daddy Benjamin. I love you too, Hope, more than you'll ever know. 6 months later, the adoption was finalized. Hope Johnson officially became Benjamin's daughter in a courtroom filled with friends who had watched their amazing journey. Hope wore a beautiful white dress and carried flowers, looking like the princess from her mother's stories. But the most important change was not Hope's new name or address. The most important change was in Benjamin himself. Taking care of Hope had given him a reason to live again. Her laughter filled the empty mansion. Her curiosity and joy reminded him of all the good things in the world. Daddy, can we visit Mama Elena and Tommy today? Hope asked one Sunday morning. She always called Elena and Tommy her angel family, and she loved bringing flowers to their graves. Of course we can, sweetheart. At the cemetery, Hope placed fresh daisies on both graves and talked to Elena and Tommy like they were old friends. Hi, Mama Elena. Hi, Tommy. I brought you flowers and I have lots to tell you. Daddy took me to the zoo yesterday and we saw elephants. Daddy says, you would have loved the baby elephant, Because you always loved baby animals. Benjamin smiled as he listened to Hope's chatter. She had brought so much light into his darkness. Daddy, do you think Mama Elena and Tommy are happy that we found each other? I think they're very happy, Benjamin said, meaning every word. I think they helped us find each other that day in the cemetery. I think so too, Hope agreed. My first. Mama and your first family are probably best friends now in heaven. As they walked home, Hope slipped her small hand into Benjamin's large one. Daddy, I have an idea. Remember the story about the 3 wishes? I remember. I think we should use our money to make those wishes come true. We should feed hungry people and give homes to people who are cold and help kids who don't have families. Benjamin stopped walking and looked down at his remarkable daughter. That's a wonderful idea. Hope. How do you think we should do it? We could build a big place where kids, like me, can live until they find forever families. And we could have a kitchen that makes food for anyone who's hungry. And maybe a doctor who helps people for free. Hope. That's the most beautiful idea I've ever heard. And that's exactly what they did. Benjamin and Hope started the Elena and Tommy Foundation, which built children's homes, community kitchens, and free medical clinics all over the city. Hope helped design everything, making sure there were comfortable beds, warm blankets, and stuffed animals for every child who needed a safe place to stay. On the first anniversary of Elena and Tommy's death, Benjamin and Hope stood together at their graves with hundreds of people whose lives had been changed by their foundation. Look how many people came to remember them, Hope whispered to Benjamin. They came because of you, sweetheart. You taught me that the best way to honor people we love is to love others the way they loved us. Hope squeezed Benjamin's hand. I'm proud to be your daughter, Daddy. I'm proud to be your father. Hope, you saved my life that day when you asked if I cried from hunger. You reminded me that there are always people who need help more than we need to feel sorry for ourselves. As the sun set behind the oak trees, Benjamin realized that losing everything had actually led him to find everything that truly mattered. Elena and Tommy would always live in his heart, but Hope had taught him that love doesn't end when people die. Love grows bigger when we share it with others who need it. The little girl who once had nothing but a piece of moldy bread had shown a billionaire the real meaning of wealth. And together, they were making sure no child would ever have to cry from hunger again. That night, as Benjamin tucked Hope into her canopy bed, she asked the same question she asked every night. Daddy, will you tell me a story? What kind of story would you like tonight? Tell me the story about how we found each other. So Benjamin told Hope about the sad man who thought his life was over, and the brave little girl who asked if he cried from hunger, and how their meeting changed both their lives forever. And they lived happily ever after, Hope said sleepily, finishing the story like she always did. Yes, they did, Benjamin agreed, kissing her forehead. And tomorrow we'll help make sure other people can live happily ever after too. As Hope drifted off to sleep, Benjamin stood by her window looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there were other children like Hope who needed help. Somewhere were other adults like him who needed to remember what really mattered in life. But he wasn't worried anymore. He had learned that love never really dies. It just finds new ways to grow. Elena and Tommy had sent him hope, and hope had brought him back to life. The richest man in the city had finally learned the secret that Hope had known all along. The most valuable things in life cannot be bought with money. They can only be shared from one heart to another, one act of kindness at a time. And in a mansion that had once felt empty and cold, a father and daughter slept peacefully, dreaming of all the ways they would spread love and hope to the world tomorrow. A year passed since the night Benjamin tucked Hope into her bed after telling her their story. In that year, the Elena and Tommy Foundation had blossomed beyond anything Benjamin could have imagined. What had started as a single children's home and community kitchen in the heart of the city had grown into 3 bustling centers, each one filled with laughter, warm meals, and second chances. Every morning, Hope accompanied Benjamin to one of the centers before school. She insisted on it, saying it was important for her to check on her friends, the children living there who had, in her words, hearts just like mine used to feel before Daddy Benjamin found me. At each visit, Hope made her rounds like a tiny mayor. She would kneel beside the toddlers and play blocks with them, whisper encouragement to the shy older kids, and even help the cook serve breakfast. The staff adored her. The children adored her more. To them, she wasn't just the founder's daughter. She was living proof that their story could change. One chilly November morning, Benjamin stood in the kitchen of their main center, watching Hope hand out plates of pancakes. "You've got syrup on your cheek, Hope," he teased as she passed by. "That's okay," she said with a grin. "It just means I'm working hard." Benjamin smiled, but his heart swelled with pride. He often thought about how much Elena would have loved this, to see their home and resources turned into a living, breathing force for good. But joy and purpose often came hand in hand with challenges, and their biggest challenge yet was about to arrive. One afternoon, while Benjamin was reviewing plans for their fourth center, his lawyer James called. His voice was tight, the way it got when something wasn't quite right. "Benjamin, there's something you should know," James said. Benjamin's chest tightened. "What is it?" "There's a man claiming to be Hope's biological father. He's filed a petition for custody." The words felt like ice water pouring down Benjamin's spine. "That's impossible. We did the search. There were no living relatives." "I know," James replied. "But this man says he didn't know about her until recently. He claims he's changed and wants to raise her." Benjamin's mind reeled. "Does he have any proof?" "DNA test results. They're legitimate." Benjamin's hand gripped the edge of his desk. Hope had been through so much. The streets, the hunger, the lost. And now, just as she had found stability and love, someone wanted to pull her world apart again. What are his intentions? Benjamin asked. James hesitated. "I've seen cases like this before. Sometimes it's genuine. Sometimes it's about money. Especially when they find out who adopted the child." Benjamin knew he had to protect her, not just legally, but emotionally. That evening at dinner, Benjamin studied Hope across the table. She was chattering about a science experiment at school, waving her fork for emphasis. He couldn't bring himself to interrupt her joy. But later, as he tucked her into bed, she noticed his quietness. "Daddy, what's wrong?" He sat on the edge of her bed. "Hope, there's something we might have to talk about soon. Someone has come forward and says he's your biological father." Hope's brow furrowed. "My real dad?" Benjamin took her small hand in his. "You have a real dad. Me. But before me, there was a man who was part of your life only before you were born. Does he want to meet me?" she asked cautiously. "Yes," Benjamin said gently, "but you don't have to do anything you don't want to. You're safe here. No one can take you away without us having a say." Hope's eyes searched his. "Will you still be my daddy? No matter what?" Benjamin's voice broke as he pulled her into a hug. "Always. Nothing will ever change that." The following weeks were a blur of legal filings and court dates. Hope's biological father, a man named Eric Lawson, appeared in person, tall, wiry, and with a face that carried its own kind of weathered sorrow. He claimed he'd spent years battling addiction, had gone through rehab, and now worked steady construction jobs. He insisted he wanted to make things right and be part of his daughter's life. Benjamin sat through the meetings, listening, evaluating. Part of him bristled with suspicion. Was this about Hope? Or about the wealth and comfort that came with being in Benjamin's orbit? But another part of him recognized something in Eric's eyes. A longing not unlike his own when he'd lost Elena and Tommy. Hope met Eric in a supervised visit arranged by the court. Benjamin stayed in the background, watching her small frame as she entered the room. Eric smiled nervously. "Hi, Hope." She gave a polite nod. "Hello." They sat, awkward at first. He asked about school, about her favorite color, about whether she liked sports. Hope answered politely, but Benjamin could see she was holding back. After an hour, the visit ended. In the car ride home, Hope was quiet. Finally she said, "He's nice enough, I guess. But he's not you." Benjamin's heart clenched. "You don't have to choose, sweetheart. But you do get to decide how much of him you want in your life." Months passed. The court case continued. But something unexpected happened. Eric began volunteering at one of the foundation's kitchens. Benjamin was skeptical at first, but the staff reported that he worked hard, showed up on time, and treated everyone kindly. One day, Benjamin approached him. "Why are you doing this?" Eric shrugged. "I figured, even if Hope never wants me in her life, I can still try to make her proud. Maybe she'll see I'm not the same man who walked away before she was born." Benjamin studied him for a long moment. "If you hurt her, even once, you'll answer to me." Eric nodded solemnly. "Fair enough." By summer, the custody battle had shifted. Eric withdrew his petition, telling the court that Hope was exactly where she needed to be. Instead, he requested to remain part of her extended life, as a friend, a supporter, a distant figure she could approach if she chose. Benjamin respected the decision. More importantly, Hope did too. One evening, she asked, "Benjamin, do you think people can really change?" He thought of his own transformation since meeting her. "I think sometimes the right reason comes along, and it makes people want to change. And if they work at it every day, they can." "Then I think Eric is trying," she said quietly. "And that's good. Because Mama always said the world gets better when people try." The next few years became a tapestry of growth, love, and shared purpose. Hope thrived in school, joining the debate team and writing essays about social justice. The foundation expanded to 6 centers, each with a community clinic, playground, and library. When Hope turned 12, she gave her first public speech at a fundraising gala, standing at the podium in a simple blue dress. She looked out at the audience of hundreds. "I used to be a little girl with nothing but a piece of bread and a blanket from a church," she began. "Then my daddy found me in a cemetery. He didn't just give me a home, he gave me a future. But what I want you to know is this: every child deserves what I have now. Safety. Love. A place to belong. That's why we're here tonight. Not for me, but for the children who are still waiting for their story to change." The room erupted in applause. Benjamin wiped his eyes. Years later, on the day Hope graduated high school, Benjamin stood in the crowd, clapping louder than anyone. She was valedictorian, her speech weaving her personal journey with a call to action. For her classmates to find the people who need your help and be their hope. After the ceremony, she ran into his arms. "We did it, Daddy." "No," he said, kissing her hair. "You did it, and I couldn't be prouder." When Hope turned 18, she made an announcement at the foundation's annual dinner. "Going to college," she said, "but I'm also going to keep working here, because this place isn't just my past, it's my future too." Benjamin felt an overwhelming sense of completion. The little girl who had once offered him half a moldy piece of bread was now leading projects, drafting proposals, and mentoring younger children in the homes. One winter evening, years later, Benjamin and Hope walked together through the courtyard of the foundation's headquarters. The air smelled of wood smoke from a nearby fire pit where children roasted marshmallows. "You've built something incredible," Hope said, slipping her arm through his. "We built it," Benjamin corrected, "together." They stopped under a tall oak tree, its branches bare against the night sky. "Do you remember the first thing you ever said to me?" he asked. Hope smiled. "I asked if you cried from hunger." "Yes," Benjamin said softly, "and that question saved my life." They stood in silence for a moment, listening to the laughter of the children. "You know," Hope said, "Mama, Elena, and Tommy would be really proud of you." Benjamin swallowed hard. "And they'd be proud of you too," You're everything they would have hoped you'd be." That night, as they left the courtyard, a light snow began to fall. Hope looked up at the sky, catching flakes on her glove. "It's like the whole world is new again," she said. Benjamin looked at her, his daughter, his partner in building. A better world, the living embodiment of everything he had lost and found again. "It is," he agreed, "and tomorrow we'll keep making it better." Because in the end, their story had never really been about loss. It had been about finding love in the most unexpected place, finding purpose in the shadow of grief, and finding the truth that the richest life is one lived for others. As they walked home, hand in hand, Benjamin knew that no matter how many years passed, they would always carry the same light, the light they had found together, and the light they would keep giving to the world, one heart at a time.